Hello and welcome to this short presentation on charity annual reporting requirements. My name is Michelle Crilly and I am a Governance and Charity Advice Officer with NICFA, Northern Ireland Council for Voluntary Action. I am recording and delivering this presentation on behalf of the Scout Foundation Northern Ireland. During the next 20 minutes, I will look at completing the online annual monitoring return. I'll start by looking at how you log on to online services, how you update your charity details, completing Part A of the annual monitoring return, then Part B and the declaration that you need to complete. We'll then consider each of the 3 documents that you need to upload: the trustee annual report, receipts and payments accounts, and an independent examiner's report. So, what is the annual monitoring return? Well, it's an online form that registered charities must complete and submit on an annual basis. So it has to be done within 10 months of the end of your financial year. And for charities that are just registered, you have 10 months from the end of your first full financial year. And it's really your opportunity to report to your stakeholders, to the public, to anyone interested in your group, your activities during that year. So in addition to the online form, you have to complete 3 documents and those must be uploaded. They need to be saved as PDFs and they need to be uploaded at the end of the annual monitoring return. And those 3 documents are your trustee's annual report, the report from an independent examiner, and a set of accounts. So the first step in your annual monitoring return is being able to access your profile on the charity register. And in order to do that, you need to log on. So the link here shows you where you can log on to your account. Your username will be your charity number, and that charity number usually will begin with a 1. Don't put in the NIC in front of it. And you will be, when you registered, you'll have been sent a password. Now, if you've forgotten your password, you can reset it, and there's a link that you can press to reset your password. The link to reset your password will be sent to the email address that the Charity Commission hold for you. Now, a lot of groups, their email address has changed, and if that is the case, you need to get in touch with monitoring at charitycommissionni.org and ask them to update the email address that they hold for you. If you still can't log on, one of the things I find is to clear cookies, and if you're stuck, get in touch with the Charity Commission. Now, there are a few legal issues going on with the Charity Commission at the minute, which I'm not going to cover in this short presentation, but the Charity Commission, it just means at the minute the Charity Commission might be a wee bit slow in responding, so just bear that in mind. So if you've logged on with your username, which is your charity number, and your password, the first thing that you will see is this welcome screen. And the welcome screen has 2 sections: charity services and annual monitoring. What I would recommend that you do is to start with charity services. So log on to charity services and go through and change and update anything that is different from the last time that you have logged on. And then once you've done that, when you get to the end of that process, you'll be able to save, exit. It'll take you back to this home screen, and then you can start the annual monitoring return. If you just go into the annual monitoring return first, what will happen is if you have to change any details, you'll have to press save and exit, come back to the home screen anyway, and update the details under charity details. So my advice is start with charity details, make sure they're correct, and then proceed to the annual monitoring return. So you have Part A, and all registered charities must complete this part, and that's irrespective of your income. You have Part B, which is it's a requirement for those registered charities with an income over 10,000, and Part C if your income is over 250,000. So I'll focus on Part A and Part B, given the nature of the Scouting Ireland groups. I don't think there's any of them have an income over 250,000. So the charity details that I was talking about, all of these will have been pre-populated with the information that you've given the Charity Commission when you registered, or if you've changed them, the changes will be saved here. So your organisation name, any other names that you're known by, your number, and you then confirm those details, and then you'd be shown a page with the contact details and then the trustees' details. The trustee details that you see on this form won't be available online, just bear that in mind. It's only the names that come up online. You'll be asked then to confirm your area of benefit, your charity classification and your bank account. And as I said, if you don't do this prior to starting the annual monitoring return, you'll have to save and exit, go back to the home screen and complete the charity details and then start again on the annual monitoring return. So forms pre-populated, it should be just a matter of pressing save and next to move you through these pages. And that should be very, very simple. So part A, it asks you when the financial period starts and when the financial period ends. Most organisations, their financial period will, well, it varies, but an awful lot of them, the financial period ends on the 31st of January and begins on the 1st of February. For other organisations, it ends on the 30th of April and begins again on the 1st of May. There was no compunction when groups were registering to have a set year end, so you'll find some groups have just put in a very random year end, and there is a mechanism if you wish to change that, because some groups, once they got started and they realised that they were preparing accounts for AGMs and the timing wasn't quite matching, they changed it. So you can do that from the main menu, the main screen of online services. But if you know what those are, you fill those in. You then have a tick box: is reporting year first financial year, yes or no? So if it's your first year, click yes, and if it's not your first year, click no. It then asks you for the current income and expenditure, and if you have it, the previous financial year income and expenditure. So those figures, if you put those in, those should be the same figures that appear in your trustee annual report, and obviously the same figures that appear in your accounts. So you would need to prepare those documents before you start completing this form. It asks, are the figures provided from consolidated accounts? For most charities, this is a no, because most charities aren't in groups. So it asks, what are the bases of your financial statements? And for most of the Scouting Ireland groups, the basis will be receipts and payments. You would have accruals accounts if you're registered as a company, and there's some other conditions which we'll look at. But for most of you, you're going to be doing receipts and payments accounts. And then the next question, it's quite badly worded, but what it's asking is what organisation reviewed the charity accounts? And it's not asking about an organisation or a person. It's saying, really, did you get a statutory audit or an independent examination? And for the Scouting Ireland groups, it's going to be an independent examination. And then it asks you for the details of the person who completed that independent examination. So again, you would need to have your independent examination form done before you come to complete this form. And what it asks for is the name of the person who did it, or if they're an accountancy firm, what was the organisation name, address and postcode. And you don't need to worry about an audit reference number because you won't be getting audits. So the next part asks you if your independent examiners raised any issues. And if they did they produce an audit report which was expressed as a qualified opinion, an adverse opinion or a disclaimer? So it would be very unusual, I think, to get an adverse opinion, but you may be, in some cases, get a qualified opinion. And you might get a qualified opinion, for example, if you didn't have all of your financial records. So if the independent examiner, the person looking at your accounts, couldn't compare those accounts with all of your financial records because maybe you had a few bank statements missing, they may produce a qualified opinion. And there's loads of directions on what their report should look like and what they should contain, which we'll have a quick look at the end. So another clarification of charity details: the number of trustees resident in Northern Ireland. It's very simple to complete. And then, are you registered with any other regulator? And I doubt any of you will be, but maybe if you're a cross-border Scout in Ireland group, there's a remote possibility that you might also be registered with the charities regulator in the Republic, but I think for most of you won't be. It then asks areas of benefit outside the UK and Ireland, and for most groups your area of benefit is Northern Ireland, and you don't spend any money outside that. But if you did, for example, as part of your charitable objects, spent money in another country, you would record that here. But as I said, I don't think that will apply to Scouting Ireland charities. So, Part B. So if your income, your gross annual income is over 10,000, you must complete Part B. So the first question it asks is about the fundraising regulator, and it will ask if you spend more than £100,000 raising funds, it is mandatory that you become a member and join the fundraising regulator, but you don't have to. So if you tick this box, what you'll find is it'll ask if you're a member, and if you tick no, it'll then produce another box which says why not. And you can just put in that you're following the proper code of practice and you didn't feel it was necessary. There's no compunction on you to join the regulator or pay the annual levy. It's voluntary. But as long as you can reassure the Charity Commission that your fundraising practices are in line with the fundraising code of practice. And if you want more details, I can email people if they're worried about that particular question. It asks about other regulators. So for some of you, for some charities perhaps that are care homes, they might be registered with RQAI, but for most of you, I don't think you are. It then asks what staff you have, and that's just a matter of completing that. It then asks about payments to trustees and connected persons. So if your trustees, for example, might get petrol expenses for coming to meetings, then in that point, you would put in how much they're actually paid. And then any transactions with trustees. So I've come across charities where the trustees all lent money to the charity in order to get the charity established. So if there's any transactions like that, that would be where you would record it. And then again, it will ask you if you're claiming gift aid. And I think there's a question that says if you're not claiming it, why not? And if you aren't claiming it because it's not worth your while, then you can just put that in and explain that you don't think it is worth your while. So those questions aren't particularly difficult. And it's just, I suppose, the point about asking about the fundraising regulator is I think the Charity Commission want to make sure that charities who should be registered with the fundraising regulator are registered, and I think that's why they put that question in. So, annual monitor and return declaration. So you have 3 declarations. You have to declare that you've read the Commission's public benefit guidance, and all trustees should have read and have had regard to this guidance. And really that's where you're looking at what your charitable purposes are and what benefits flow from your charitable purposes. You also have to sign to say that you have reported any serious incidents, and the Charity Commission has quite clear guidance on what would constitute a serious incident. But if there has been something which has happened in your group during the year and you felt it was necessary that the Charity Commission should know, or maybe you weren't sure, you should get in touch and let them know. And that could be maybe some of your equipment was stolen or destroyed. It could be a safeguarding incident with a child, which brings us on to the next one. It will ask if you work with vulnerable beneficiaries, and if you say yes, it will then ask if you have the appropriate safeguarding policies in place, and you should. I mean, the Commission here, I think they're starting to take this a lot more seriously. So if you do work with children, which you obviously do, and you should be able to stand up and say, yes, you have the appropriate safeguarding policies for working with children. So then the final bit is it's where you say who's submitting this form. And why I put this in red is it's really important to note that this is completed on behalf of all the trustees. So even if it's one person who's doing it, the information given is given on behalf of all of the trustees. So you've completed your annual monitoring return, the form, and you need to upload the 3 documents. And the first document that you need is a trustee annual report, and there's a particular format for that when you're completing receipts and payments account. So you need the financial year that the report relates to. You need the name of the charity as it appears on the register, as well as any other names, and the Northern Ireland charity number, and the principal address of the charity. So I think it's a good idea to put that information up front and then move on to the next section. So you have to put the trustees, the name of all of the charity trustees on the date that the report was approved. And you'll find a lot of trustees will bring these reports to AGMs and get them approved at AGMs. And any individuals who served as trustees during the year. So maybe someone was a trustee for 6 months and then they resigned. Their name still has to go on to the report because they were a trustee during the year. And then details of how the charity is constituted and the governing document. So I think if you put in here, most Scout in Ireland groups are unincorporated associations. So if you mention that. So this is the real meat, if you like, of the trustee annual report, and you put in a summary description of the purposes of your charity. So whatever those purposes are outlined on the commission, it might be a good idea just to paste them in here. And then you explain how your activities have furthered the purposes for the public benefit. So whatever your charitable purposes are, what activities have you undertaken to what public benefit has flowed from those purposes during the year, and then what are your main achievements. And then there needs to be a statement that the trustees have had regard to the Commission's public benefit guidance. And the PDFs here, I'm just going to open this up. Oops, no, I'm not. So that's your trustee annual report. The first couple of sections. The next section then asks about the charity's financial position at the end of the year, and those figures should match the figures that you put on the online annual monitoring return form, and they should also match the figures from your accounts. You need to say if there's any funds held materially in deficit at the end of the year and any steps that the charity trustees have undertaken to reduce that deficit. And then there should be a dated signature of one or more of the trustees. So once you have that, and it doesn't matter, you can handwrite it if you want, as long as you have that information. But if you've got a form with all that information, you have to then save it as a PDF. So you can type it up in Word, and then in Word you can go to Save As, and with the drop-down menu you can select File Type PDF. So you can't upload it unless it is a PDF. If you choose to handwrite it, you can then scan it into your computer and save it as a PDF, and I can help. If anybody needs particular help with that, they can get in touch, but it must be in a PDF format before you can upload it. So main point to remember is that the figures that you put in here, the financial information that you give in this report, should match the form, as I've already said, and should match your accounts. You can put in as much detail as you like, and it's really your opportunity to sell your charity and really celebrate your achievements for the year. And a lot of people do this. You have some really beautiful examples with photographs and testimonials. It's up to you, but what I've gone through there is the bare minimum of what you need to put in. So you've got your form filled out, you've your trustee annual report completed and saved as a PDF. The next thing that you need is a set of accounts, or you might prepare the accounts first. And what you're doing is receipts and payments accounts, and it's a form of accounts. It's really a summary of all the monies received and all the monies paid out via cash or in from the bank by the charity during the financial year. Critically, you need a statement of assets and liabilities. So your receipts and payments accounts, it should be in the form, I think most people would find it useful to do it in the form of a spreadsheet. And the spreadsheet then will summarise. So you may have income from membership, and you would just add all that up for the year and put in one figure. You may have income from fundraising, maybe a raffle. So you would put income from fundraising, raffle, and bake sale, perhaps. And then expenditure, equipment, hall fees, insurance. And then at the end of your spreadsheet, what you're looking to have is a statement of assets and liabilities. Now, in its very simplest form, this can be a sentence, and the sentence can say, other than cash in hand and money in the bank, this charity has no assets, and there are no liabilities. Or what you can do is you can estimate the value of your assets if you have them. So if you have tents, if you have any other camping equipment or any other equipment, you can estimate the value of that, and then you can put in a sentence to say that the assets held are equipment to the value of, and then put that in. Now, just to be aware, the Charity Commission do not check every set of accounts or reports that are uploaded, but if they do check them, and you don't have a statement of assets and liabilities, the chances are they'll reject them. So it is well worth making sure that you have that and that you put it in. So there are loads of templates that you can use. Some of them are more complicated than others, but you do, at its most basic, it's a summary of the money in and the money out, along with the statement of assets and liabilities. So, as I was saying, an asset is an item of property owned by the charity that has value and is available for the charity. So include land, property, equipment, and liabilities could be things like overdrafts, creditors, and as I said, that was the sentence there that I was reading out. Other than cash in hand or in the bank, the charity has no assets or liabilities. So a summary spreadsheet, and then your statement of assets and liabilities, and then save those as one document. So they're not going to be two separate documents, they're going to be saved as one document, and that document is in the PDF format. Those are some links to where you can get help. So you have your annual report, which outlines the public benefit that flows from your charitable objects. You have your set of accounts, and then you give these two things together with all of your financial records to someone, and that person's job is to have a look at the accounts and look at the records and make sure that your accounts are a good and an accurate description of your financial records. So if you in your accounts under equipment have spent £500 on a tent, the chances are then you'll have that receipt for £500, and the person who is independently examining your accounts will be able to look at those too, and show that it's a fair and accurate record. So an independent examiner involves an external check on accounts and a review of the accounting records held by the charity and a comparison of the accounts with the records. And their job is to identify any unusual items or disclosures. And there's a whole set of guidance which can be found at this link that they need to. So there are a number of directions that independent examiners must follow. And essentially what they're about is checking that they're independent of you, that they can actually act as your independent examiner. Checking that you're eligible for an independent examination. Making sure that they record and document their findings. Making sure that they understand your charity and what you're about. And essentially, number 5, checking that accounting records are kept and not materially misstated on your accounts. Make sure that the accounts are consistent with your records. Look for any identified conflicts and try to identify or follow up any issues that they need more information on. And they need to check that you've got the right format, receipts and payments accounts, and check the content. So a simple check, making sure that all of your income, for example, adds up, all of your expenditure adds up. They don't need Direction 10 unless they're examining accruals accounts. So in your case, they will not need Direction 10. Direction 11, they should have a look at your trustee annual report and make sure it's consistent with the sort of things that you're spending money on. And then finally, they need to write up their examination, and there's a very specific format for that, which they can download. And then once they're happy, they've actually done the work, they can then just sign and put their name to that particular form. That then is saved as a PDF, and that gives you your 3 documents: your trustee annual report, your set of receipts and payments accounts with a statement of assets and liabilities, and your independent examiner's report. So you'll have the chance to upload those 3 documents at the end of your annual monitoring return. That's just the form of words that the independent examiner uses. And addresses, or my email address was at the front, but just in case, it's michelle.crilly@nicva.org, and Michelle is spelled, in my case, with 1 L, Michele. So thanks for listening, and please feel free to get in touch if you have any questions whatsoever.